everyone, it's me, Carol from Practical Mystic. Thanks so much for joining me today. Finally, we are coming to part 3, the end of my series on the universal year 2025, which of course is a 9 vibration. As you can see today, we're going to relate it to the tarot, the major arcana, the Hermit, which is card number 9. We'll talk about the corresponding planet. We'll talk about the corresponding sign. And then we are going to set the stage, if you will, by looking back at the previous year, 2024, which was a universal year 8. We'll look at that tarot card, and then I will cover why and how the circular power, in Sanskrit it's called the Kundalini, may be of interest to you at this time. Of course, I'm going to give you my interpretation of what I think 2025 is trying to teach us, how to cope with it. So I would like to begin by talking about the Hermit. Here on your screen, you see the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, and on the cover of the book, A Key to the Wisdom of the Ages by Paul Foster Case of the Tarot, you see a hermit, and there's an important part. Let me open it up here. There's an important part to bring to your attention that kind of introduces where I'm going here with you today. Okay, there is a difference. This is from the Builders of the Ataman, and see if you can spot it. And it all has to do with the Yod, a Hebrew letter, which is depicted on the hermit's head. Not so, it's just like a traditional hood here on the Rider-Waite-Smith. You also see the Yod here. So what does all this mean? Well, the Yod in Hebrew means hand or open hand, an extended hand. That's quite important, and in my interpretation of the Hermit year, which we'll get into later on in this video, of kind of giving and receiving, a give and take, a balancing of energy, if you will. Again, I'll clarify that more as we go along. But there is also the indication that that Hebrew letter bestows, the Yod in the Hermit card is going to bestow power. Definitely skill and dexterity, and of course, wisdom. Those definitely depict the meaning of what we know of the Hermit when we interpret it, whether it's an archetype or whether it's interpreted in a reading. But I also want to bring to your attention other Yods in the tarot, specifically for the card. It is quite instrumental for us this year. It is the Moon card. It's card number 18, and all good numerologists know that 18 is a vibration of 9. It is made up of the power of 1 and 8, and I will say immediately for those who want to know, the number 1 in numerical vibration has to do with the sun. It's very powerful. The number 8, if you're doing the Pythagorean, is the planet Saturn. So we have the sun and Saturn. And the Yods that are coming down from, you could look at that as the sun, you could look at that as the moon, and its phases, but the Yods here are different. They are described as drops of lights, and light being of a spiritual nature. Yod is the 10th number in the Hebrew alphabet and considered a number of all potential. 10 is the highest number. You've heard me reference that in a previous, I think it was the first video that I did for that, because no number exists beyond 10. It is just reduced back to a smaller denominator, much like we did here for the number 18. Okay, I bring this up to you because the Hermit card, number 9, is and was, here we go, another card coming up, is and was card 0, the Fool, as he began his pilgrimage, his journey in evolution. Therefore, if we look at the 9 and then the added card, the Fool, we really do have 10 cards. So what message, meaning, is the Hermit giving us that reflects our evolutionary process for 2025? If we look at all these cards, these are all instrumental. We are going to talk about the persona, the personality a little bit. But what this indicates is that, for me, interpreting it for you, the listeners, that a need for solitude, which invites contemplation and meditation. The Hermit symbolizes all his achievements, where he now has reached the top of the mountain, where the Fool was going into the abyss, the unknown, much described in the moon, the subconscious, the unconscious, the unknown. So we've come a full, let's say a full pilgrimage, a full journey of evolution. So I ask everyone to go back and reflect where you were 9 years ago. Did you get on the path? What were you doing? What were your goals back then? And then travel through those 9 years, and that will give you a clue of your own personal achievements. I also believe that because the Hermit is seen on the mountaintop, that he has done some reconciliation, some integration of his dual nature. What do I mean by dual nature? Dual nature is the male and female parts within us. We can call it also the integration of the conscious and the unconscious parts of us. We can call it the active and passive parts of us, our personality, where we excel and then maybe where we digress a little bit, stand back, are hesitant to bring forward. The Hermit seems like he's reconciled all this. And from this perspective, the Hermit kind of understands how his outer world, what he lives, is a reflection, an intricate part of what his inner world is. And what I mean about his inner world is his thoughts, what he perceives about others as well as himself. We also see that the world is mirrored back to him, what he sees below. And I want to also bring your attention to his lantern. Inside of it, he has the Star of David, and it is 2 interlocking triangles. The upper is fire. We could look at that as the active part. It is male in nature. And then the second interlocking triangle is facing down. That is the, let's say, recessive or passive. So it is fire and water. And they also symbolize duality, but they have merged together and created the Star of David. So lastly, but equally important, is his gray cloak. What is that all about? There's a lot of gray in the card. Even the blue is very pastel, very, very light in nature, the background. You see the sun glaring all over in the Fool card, and the sun is white. not the background where usually we have a white sky and some blue clouds, but here we have a yellow sky and a white sun. This is called a spiritual sun. He is tapped in to an energy that seems to be an impetus for him to take leaps of faith, to try things, to not fear, to just go with it. But back to the cloak of the hermit, the gray cloak and his hood. Is he aware of the importance of remaining neutral and balance the opposite? Because he wraps himself around it. Now, what do I mean by neutral? Well, gray is the combination of black and white. Black is, again, the duality of passive and more active. We see that on the pillars, again, things that I talked about earlier, and I think it was video 1 of this series, the towers that we saw in the Tree of Life. Okay, what else does the Hermit indicate? He indicates that we all are teachers. And we're all unique, we're all having experiencing. Therefore, let this be a year, here is some of my predictions, that we do take a leap of faith, that we show up and make a difference. And whether that is a difference in your life, because what you change will also influence everyone around you. Make no mistake, even though you may be saying, I'm not helping anyone, if you make positive changes, it is going to, let's say, affect all those in the workplace, in your home, in your partnerships, in all walks of life. The other thing is, this is a year, whatever talents you have, whatever challenges you've overcome, whatever gifts you may have, the yod is saying to present that to another. And try not to judge it, gauge it. It's not good enough, I'm not smart enough, oh, I haven't had any experience. No, this is not the year to be feeling that. This is the year to offer. They don't have to take it. Don't be attached to the outcome, but to offer whatever it is you've incurred, you've understand, you've traveled, that may be helpful to someone else. And again, that can be on a video on YouTube or talking to your next door neighbor about those challenges that you've overcome. Now, on a lower level, we always have to think about these cards, these shadow aspects, or what I like to say is the lower level. There's rashness with the hermit. There's fear with the hermit. There is judgment and limited beliefs. And instead of union and integrity, there's usually separation and equality. Please know that what I've just said could occur personally or collectively. Now, on a personal level, also know that in a 9 cycle, from a numerical standpoint, if you're in a 9 cycle personally, and we have a universal 9 cycle, there is sometimes an increased possibility of depression, social anxiety, kind of coupled with the natural tendencies of human beings, which is possibly substance abuse or self-medication. Also, it seems like our addictions are increased, and addictions could be something as small as buying more than you need, having a couple teaspoons of sugar in your coffee, knowing that you need to cut down but still doing it. Those small addictions to other types of addictions. We all have addictions. Okay. Now, the hermit corresponds to the zodiac sign Virgo. I want to talk about that right now. So, let me be very specific. Those whose sun signs are Virgos, whose rising sign could be Virgo, or that you have a Virgo chart where there's a lot of emphasis there. And what I am seeing for them is mixed, let's say mixed energies, again, depending on your personal chart. I'm not looking at your personal chart. This is just a broad stroke for Virgos and Virgo risings. It could be that you uncover a crucial link between you and another that can open up vistas for you. That was something that you've always wanted to do. This could be the year that you kind of have that aha moment within yourself or within an individual, and it is really coming from your source. This is if you have been putting out affirmations, if you've been praying, all of those things are now coming to fruition for the Virgos. Now that link is one of healing, and it could occur in many ways. Of course, this is not the place to look at those, but I will emphasize the importance for Virgos for self-care, for self-love, and this is where I say it's wishy-washy. Because it's a 9-year, and because Virgo is in the tarot of the 9, this is a year where you need to release what has burdened you, distracted you, and distractions are sometimes our addictions, or prevented you from being your authentic self. Let me repeat that. This is the year to release what has burdened you. That could be a job. That could be a person. That could be a responsibility. What has distracted you and, of course, prevented you from being your authentic self. Okay. Now, I have personally found that it's an important step in self-love. You heard me say that earlier. This is also the time for self-love. And an important step that I've used and discovered is start monitoring your thoughts. That's all part of self-love. Are you your worst critic? Write them down. What are your thoughts from the moment you get up? What's your first thoughts? Is it when you look in the mirror, oh, I have such beautiful hair? Or is it, oh my gosh, I've got another wrinkle today? Or for the men, could it be, do I need to shave, or do I just want to have like a little bit of a beard? Oh, people tell me I don't look good with a beard. All of those thoughts are so important in understanding parts of how we love ourselves or how we're very critical of ourselves. Okay? What keeps coming up in your thoughts? And does it zap your energy or does it bring you joy? Those are all things. And whatever keeps cropping up, that is what you need to resolve this year. That is what I'm getting at. And if you let it go in a 9 cycle, usually you've been there, done that. You are through. It's so important to get things done in the 9 cycle. Now, I want to go a little bit more into the sign of Virgo, and is considered one, this is important too. I wish I had brought that up in the second video because it's important, but I am going to reiterate it. But Virgo is considered to be one of the 3 karmic signs. The other 2 are Pisces and Scorpio. So that is what I mean about 2025 being so strong for Virgos as well as Pisces, because we know that the moon's nodes have 2 of the karmic signs, Pisces and Virgos. And I would like to interpret that at this point. Now, the Virgo, the Pisces is the North Node, and the Virgo is the South Node. And it's for 18 months. So I'd like to interpret that by saying that the energy is, the Piscean energy is of a higher vibration. It's a kind of exalted here, and it is triggering the limited beliefs which are usually around security needs. So the Pisces Virgo axis of the moon's nodes, my interpretation for this year, for Virgos and Pisces especially, is that whatever you have been struggling with, it is now being triggered so that you release what you are keeping that you perceive is a security need, and that you have to have it in order to feel safe. Now, that is a big nut to crack, and you have to sit back and saying, what are my security needs? And here, a little bit of food for thought. Are you holding on to a job that is causing you stress and anxiety because it's a good paycheck? Are you holding on to a relationship because you feel you can't go alone? Those are just little thoughts for you to consider what I'm talking about right now. Now, both sides are working. Both Pisces and Virgos are working at purification on the threefold level of existence. Pisces are learning how to temper their passions and kind of find their center, a happy medium between their very creative imagination and spontaneity. And try to make it more grounded and workable for them so that they don't get sidetracked so easily. And Virgo is learning to free itself from unhealthy attachments and fear of change. So, what can we learn from the sign Virgo? Now, this is for everyone. The act of purification. This is a year of purification on all three levels: body, mind, and spirit. Again, when we say that, we need to be disciplined, we need to be steadfast, we need to be dedicated. Now, those are all qualities of the Virgo, the highest quality, as well as the Hermit. And if you initiate that this year, I believe that it will reap great rewards for many years to come. Let's now talk about the ruler of the sign Virgo, and that is the planet Mercury. And this is key. This is key because Mercury initiates what we just covered. Remember I said, what are the thoughts that you have? Are you a self-critic? That is the mind, that is the thought process, and that belongs to the planet Mercury, which is your ruler for Virgo. So Mercury is in astrology and also in the Pythagorean triangle, we look for this. It is considered the seat of the will. That means to think will form a feeling that most often will initiate an action. So Mercury is associated also with the nervous system, all sense of perception and sensory organs. So if you think of something, you're going to get a bodily sensation from that thought process. It's all interconnecting. Lastly, communication is front and center this year. What you tell yourself is just as powerful as the words that you say out loud. Therefore, I want everyone to be mindful of what they say. I also want everyone to be mindful of what you write down. and where you sign on the dotted line, what you sign up for, what contracts you make, and where you're obligating your services, because Virgo is also about services, service to other people. So where you are extending a hand and helping other people, be cautious of, be conscious of what you're signing up for. Okay, now though I wanted to expand this a little more, because Mercury is important for everyone, especially Virgos. But let's say you are born with the Mercury retrograde. Now, there is this naturally, for anyone who has a Mercury retrograde, myself included, there's almost like this surge of urgency right now for us, those Mercury retrograde, to get organized. There's this feeling of, I've got to purge, I got to relieve myself from responsibilities. I don't want to do this anymore. It's almost like we're putting on the brakes, where we should just be tapping the brakes. Yes, continue to purge, continue to release, let go, liquidate things, organize, lighten up your loads, lighten up your responsibilities. That is very important for anyone who has a Mercury retrograde. Also, I also want to say that the nervous system of anyone with the Mercury retrograde is kindly, let's say, 2 notches up from the regular nervous system of a Virgo individual. So I'm also suggesting that you take extra care this year, get more sleep, get more downtime, try to do more yoga, contemplation, meditation. That's all going to help to release stress. There's that urgency because of that 9 energy. Now I want to look at, let me get my books out here. I want to look at the 9th letter. We're covering everything to do with 9. Of course, we talked about the Kabbalah in, I think, video number 2, but also the 9th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Okay, now I'm showing you this book. This is one that I got early on when I was opening myself up to the Kabbalah, relating it to the tarot. This is a primer. I do recommend it. It's by Henrietta Bernstein. I do recommend the book for someone who is just starting out. And this had a nice place for me to bring to your attention the 9th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, which is Tet. Let's find it here. Here it is. Okay, I want to make sure you see this on your screen. You can. And it corresponds, so we do have to talk about it. Tet means serpent, as you can see here. It is the 9th letter. And what I want to bring is the following information that will link us back to the previous year. And before I do that, I also want to suggest, because some of you have been asking me about books of the Kabbalah, this is if you've never studied the Kabbalah and are trying to relate it to the tarot, and then when you want, for those who are advanced, I do recommend The Tree of Life, A Study of Magic. And of course, that's Israel Regati. Excellent book. A little, like I said, this is more for the advanced. So here's our beginners who are interested, and that is for the advanced. Now, going back to the 9th letter of the Hebrew alphabet and Tet, and of course it means serpent. I'm going to show you this. This is where we're heading here. All right, and we talked about the first chakra in the 2nd video, I believe. Again, you'll have to kind of, if you're interested in why I brought it up and the importance of balancing the first chakra right now, this is another reason why. Okay, so Teth means serpent, and it is one of the simple letters, and it relates, this is important, it relates to the zodiac sign Leo. Okay, so Leo in the tarot is 2024, again, what I alluded to, and it is the Strength card. This is our link back to 2024 Universal Year 8. The tarot card Strength corresponds to Leo. Teth meaning serpent, the initiate. Now, what is an initiate? Someone who is on the path, okay? The initiate then is called in ancient times a serpent of wisdom. Why was it called the serpent of wisdom? Because the serpent, as many of you know, sheds its skin quite often. Now, esoterically, that symbolizes as the initiate goes from, let's say, 0 to 9, which is the path of invocation, initiation, wisdom, that we reap benefits from that. Those benefits are going through a process where it is finally cleansing the personality self, the persona, which we show publicly. Now, this is done by releasing what we would say is the distortions within the characteristics of the personality. Do you see the shedding of the outer skin, the outer personality? That is the symbolic process. Now, each personality has an ego. We know that, which has its own self-image, its own orientation, and its own nature. That is all well and good. The personality is the garment we come back from lifetime to lifetime, that we learn from, that we chose to take on. The soul has to work through the personality in order to grow and evolve. It's called the higher self. So it's so important for the initiate to understand that he sometimes has to restrain or purify his personality, his lower nature, so that he does allow the higher self to kind of peek through every now and then. Almost that's represented by the hermit, the higher self, the higher state of consciousness, and walk the talk. Be an example of that which you have learned. Now let's go back to the Strength card, because that's also symbolic of what I've kind of alluded to. The meaning of strength, Leo, relates to the heart, the back, and the spine. This is so important in the Kundalini rising. And if we look at what the woman is doing here, she's taming the lion. She's making it obedient. We can say she's taming the personality. We are making our personality obedient and allowing for the higher self, the soul, who really has awakened by the time we are in path number 3, and is going through an initiation process. We see that the lion, if you will, kind of is now laying down with the lambs. We see that in some of the tarot cards. And what that means is that he still has his strength, still has his courage, still has his vitality. He's still the king, the lion, the king, the beast, but his heart has been transformed. In fact, in the book, Mastering the Tarot by Eden Gray, that was, again, one of my first books. There wasn't many books when I was starting the tarot, but I do recall that she called the Lion King, the king of beasts, which the Leo sign represents. It is a powerful subhuman. And Eden Gray said that she relates these attributes of Leo, even though it resonates to the sun, to the planet Mars. And I thought how interesting, because Mars is number 9. Like I said, 1 is the sun. Leo is the ruler of the sun. And 9 is Mars, card 19, which is the sun. All interrelated, and that because it is attributed to the planet Mars, it's very, very powerful when you have Sun and Mars working together. Now, additionally, the initiate has slain his passions. The individual has slain their passions, their lusts, their desires of the heart. We all have them. Those are all part of our humanness, but sometimes they rage uncontrollably, and it really causes us to get off the path. Again, these are all lessons that we are said to be learning when we walk the journey, the path of the tarot, and understanding our weak points and our weaknesses, especially the heart weaknesses. But now going back to the Hebrew letter Teth, the hieroglyphic meaning of Teth, and I don't know if it was in that book or not, but it is roof. That is it. Again, going back to the esoteric wisdom, I bring this up because the roof acts as a protector. And I also contribute that to the protection of the yod with the Hermit card here, because esoterically, the protection that we all have on staying on the path, not getting distracted, continuing our evolution, is what the Hermit has, which is wisdom. So esoteric, the ancients said that really our protection is our wisdom. So let's go back to the serpent power here. It is a vibration that began, that we started focusing on during the 8 last year. Now, what I want to really bring to everyone's attention is bringing up the Kundalini isn't a one-day process. I'll get into that a little bit more. But I want to preface this with some experts on the topic. And it's from astrologer, and you see me kind of hemming and hawing here as I'm looking at the books. Okay, here we go. So, Jeff Green is a well-known astrologer. It's someone that I've dove into, and he talks about the Kundalini. He talks about the chakras in this book, Uranus, Freedom from the Known. Now, we know that the planet Uranus correlates very strongly right now. We can say that we are in the Aquarius age, which is ruled by Uranus. But Jeff Green, I don't think I did it. Okay. In this book, and I'm paraphrasing right now, and I reread it last night, but in this book, Jeff Green has a unique way of looking at the chakras. Well, he has a very esoteric, and it is, I would say, second and third emotion by other esoteric teachers, practitioners of the Kundalini, but he looks at it in planets, and I thought this was fascinating. He says that Uranus corresponds to the middle layer of the root chakra, the what is it called? Coccyx? Yeah, I think that's it. Coccyx, the first chakra, the root chakra. And that this root chakra, you heard me say the middle layer has 2 other layers, but Uranus is in the middle. Now, breaking this down, he explains that the third layer is the what do you call, correlates, oh, I'm forgetting what he said now. What he explains is that each planet has a correlation to the rising of the Kundalini. And because Uranus is in the center, now the first layer is Saturn, the second layer is Uranus, and this is important, the third layer is Pluto. Pluto right now has transited into Aquarius, all interrelated. This is why I bring this up. And he says that because Uranus is now he says the outer layer, he also calls it spheres, is now triggering and kind of awakening this chakra at the core of the Kundalini, that a lot of us are going to be feeling this awakening, this quickening in the first chakra because of Uranus, where it is now currently, what Uranus is all about, and certainly Pluto, the planet of transformation, which is the last layer or sphere of the first chakra, is also all being activated. So the Uranus archetype, or 11th house transit, which is occurring right now in the individual chart on a universal level, is called the Aquarius evolutionary consciousness. A lot of people are talking about that. And that because it is stimulating that center, let's call it a sphere, people may be feeling out of sorts, not sleeping, could be depressed. And what Jeff Green says is the reason why is very important. He contributed that on a natural basis that we all go through the Saturn cycles. We have 3 Saturn returns, and that we go through them, we have a little bit of turmoil, but basically everything is hunky-dory. But it is not, because Saturn right now, which is known as our identity, our reality, our purpose, is being restricted. It's not going full cycle. It's kind of fast forwarding to the next process of evolution, which is Uranus. And that evolutionary process, we may not all be ready for. We may not have the consciousness for it. I think that's why we're seeing such a change in the collective people, the fear, the anxiety, the loneliness, all of that. He explains that so well in this book about what is happening with all of the chakras. Now, Pluto is also slowing, initiating all of this because he's now in Aquarius, and he is causing a lot of symptoms of distress and uncertainty. So I also want to say that this book, Uranus, was published back in 1988, even before Pluto was in the sign of Uranus as it is right now. And since then, a lot of changes has happened. This is another book that I highly recommend. This is the first volume of Pluto. It is amazing. It is quite in depth. I mean, I outline it, I read it over and over again. It is that entail. But he also talks about what Pluto is doing in the chakras, Of course, when he wrote this, it was the Pluto generation, which I come from, which is Pluto and Leo. We're out of that, and that generation is going through a lot of changes as well. So I just wanted you to know that for all these readings and others that I'll bring up to you in a minute, there is such a need to understand this is the year if you want to work with the Kundalini. Now let me bring you some other books that I can suggest. Them over here. Hang tight. And this is not for everybody, and I want everyone to know that there's precautions. Anyone who works with the Kundalini, every practitioner, every teacher will tell you, do not do it when you are depressed, have mental health issues, so be advised. Okay, books that I recommend, especially, this is excellent, Kundalini and the Chakra, a practical manual. I would get, if you're interested in working with the chakras and the Kundalini, this is the manual I highly recommend. Okay, I am looking, I got a glare here. Let's see if her name is easier for me to see. This was, here we are, Genevieve Paulson, Kundalini and the Chakras. It's a Llewellyn book. Okay. Now, a lot of you may be familiar with Barbara Hand Crow. This was her first book, Understanding Your Key Life Passages, The Liquid Light of Sex, which talks about the phases, especially for women where they're going through the change of life. And this is, I think, the 4th edition, Astrology and the Rising of the Kundalini, the Transformative Power of Saturn, Chiron, and Uranus. So I had this when her other book came out. I certainly got this. This helped me enormously in trying to explain not only what I was going through with the change of life and midlife crisis, but also Saturn, Chiron, and Uranus, not only in my chart, but those of my clients. So if you're interested in really delving in to the changes, don't bother getting this book. This is her 4th book. Now, what's the changes here? Okay, of course, in the back, she gives you charts of passages where Chiron is. Now it's been updated to the year 2000. This, I think, was in 1980s. She's more specific about the planets Saturn, Chiron, and Uranus in the description of what is occurring for everyone. So let's look at some of the contents for you. As you can see here, she goes through all the chakras, exercises. Highly recommended, both these 2 books. Anyone interested this year, because it is front and center, and it will continue with the power of Uranus as well as the Pluto in Aquarius. Okay, lastly, I bought this book maybe a month ago. I haven't gotten into it. It was very intriguing. It's called Kundalini-What by a well-known author, Anne Ray Coldren. The reason I got this is because she's very specific in saying that as a culture of the West, and of course the Kundalini is from the East, all of the information, the practices are from an Eastern tradition. she has incorporated all of that history, all of the knowledge of the Eastern tradition with the Western, what she calls mind or consciousness. I picked this book up. As you can see, I've already started putting some of my charts to help me. Again, I haven't delved into it. This is something for you to consider if you're interested in, I'm going to say having a marriage between East and West with the Kundalini and the practice. All right, that's it for this video, friends. I'm sorry it was so long. Please let me know if you have any questions, if you need more information about this or the books that I just brought to your attention. I wish everybody well. Have a wonderful weekend, and I hope to talk to you again soon. Bye for now.